welcome back to the 12th Man podcast. Another episode. I know we haven't done one for a while, Owen, because we've been so busy with stuff. And of course, I tried to plug on my bloody laptop tonight, don't charge, so I'm having to record this off my phone. So apologies if the quality's not as good, but we do need to do a podcast because there's so much to talk about. Of course, the weekend, we've done a preview of the opening weekend. We couldn't get one done last week, so we're back this week, Owen. And a dramatic weekend it was, of course. Spurs kicked the weekend off with that. Well, I suppose Chelsea did with that 5-1 and piled the pressure on West Ham and Graham Potter. Of course, things went from bad to worse last night. 2-1 up at Wolves in the League Cup and beat by 3-2. Chelsea, whilst they were good, didn't really get out of first gear, did they? And then you look at Spurs, a big result at Man City. No really seen that coming. People were raving about Man City with their 4-0 victory against Wolves. And then not last but least, but that Monday Night Football was dramatic. And Owen, let's start there because it was Rio's night. But have we already seen the game of the season so far? I mean, it's going to take some game to top up because it had everything. It had the emotion, the red card, like some great goals in the game, and of course a magic moment. It kind of reminded you of the Wayne Rooney moment for Everton against Arsenal, the Makeda goal for United against Aston Villa, that kind of feeling about it.
I was as you can see by my name, I've sort of added a wee bit of fuel to the fire there. But no, it was an up and down game, wasn't it? I think Newcastle battered us. I'm not going to lie. They ran us ragged for the first, I would say, up until the red card. And I have to say, you see red cards and you're going, was that a red? But I don't know what Anthony Gordon was doing. He sprinted from one end of the pitch to the other, and as you said this, it was lucky that Van Dijk had his sock on.
What's that, sorry?
It's lucky Van Dijk had his sock on, or it could have been a broken leg.
Yeah, it was lucky that it kind of caught in the stud and dragged the sock down. There was obviously a script, but he got off quite late because if he had it connected with a bone, I think we'd have been looking at a very, very serious injury.
Yeah, but in terms of the game, I think we were terrible. So
I was going to say, do you think Liverpool got off with one? I mean, do you think they got off with one against Bournemouth? The fact they blew a 2-0 lead and they got a late goal, obviously, and then Salah scores right at the end. And of course, this game 2-0 up against 10 men, they blow that. And it could have been different only for that magic moment. The 11th minute of added time. It was the last minute of the game, last chance. And I think it was their only shot on target between the second and third goal. So, it looked like Newcastle, if anything, was going to get the winner.
It did. I think the Bournemouth game was a bit different because we had more chances to kill that off. So we were just not on our finishing day that day. But the Newcastle game, if they had 11 men, they would have won that. I'm telling you, I'm convinced of that. And I don't know, Liverpool's defense is a bit weird. I'm giving Kirkes a bit of a leeway because he's under a new system. He's not used to the way we play. Van Dijk was again. If we didn't have Van Dijk, I don't know where we'd be because Kanate's head's on Mars at the minute. I don't know what for that equaliser from Asula. Why let the ball bounce? He let the ball bounce, and what annoys me with Kanate, he always tries to grab. He's too touch tight. So we need to get our finger out in these last days in the window. I know we'll speak about it, but I know we're trying to get Isak, but we really need a central defender.
Yeah, we'll come on to talk about the transfers a bit later on. But I mean, just on the two games you've seen so far, and particularly the Newcastle game, are you a bit worried that, you seem to be riding a bit of a, getting a bit of fortune, a bit of luck? It's a great finish, but, it was kind of 3 shots, 3 goals against Newcastle. And really, you'd have to say that I can't remember Liverpool having really much of a spell in the game. It was kind of Newcastle were creating all the chances in the first half. Liverpool start the second half, 20 seconds in, score the second goal, and you think, well, this could be a long night for Newcastle. But the game never really shifted in momentum. It was kind of Newcastle pushing and pushing, even with the 10 men. And the amount of chances they created on the night, the amount of chances that Bournemouth created, in the game again at Anfield. Are you worried that, that defensively Liverpool are looking weak at the moment?
It's always going to be a worry, and that's why we need to get our defense sorted. I think we cannot.
That's 3 games now. If you count the Community Shield, they've conceded 2 goals on, and you think about some of the chances that teams have missed on those games as well.
For me, though, it's the main culprit's Kanate, and as I say, Kirk isn't the best start, but I'm letting him off a wee bit because he's new to the system. But Kanate's head, as I said, is on another planet, and we know his contract situation is it's ending at the end of the season, so we need to get that sorted in one way or another. We need to know if he's going or not, and we as I said, it's a worry that our defense is so open at the minute, but. And again, if we didn't have Van Dijk, it would be a different story. And I'm petrified for the weekend because we know what they're like. We know what Stoke City are like. With their corners, so and their set pieces. So
I mean,
that's
Owen, of course, there's a lot of new signings there, so there's obviously going to be a bit of a transition period in terms of getting everybody up to speed with the system. New players gelling together.
Have to say, Ekatike has started well.
Yeah, I say Ekatike has been excellent, and he looks like a real talent. You mentioned Kerkez there; he was bullied for the first goal and has looked very rash. And the
He
game,
always was, but
yeah, he looked very almost like he's trying too hard at times. And then we know how talented Wirtz is, but he struggled, especially on Monday night. Do you think that's down to the physicality of Newcastle, and is that a worry that? And these opening games that we're seeing more and more teams now kind of play out of playmaker and kind of you look at Newcastle's midfield, it's quite similar to Spurs, quite similar to Man City's in terms of it's got big units in there. Is that a worry that Wirtz is kind of being bullied at the moment?
I wouldn't say it's a worry because his underlying numbers are pretty decent. Like yeah, he's worked hard, but again, it's a new league for him, and I think it'll take time. Maybe we have to take him out of the team for a game or two just to take the spotlight off him. But I'm in no doubts about it. When he gets up to speed, he'll be a top player.
Like just from a pure neutral point of view, when I'm watching Liverpool at the moment, and I think Jamie Carragher pointed this out after the Bournemouth game, and he says he wasn't just saying it on the back of the Bournemouth game, but on the back of the Crystal Palace and the Community Shield, AC Milan in pre-season, and now we've seen the Newcastle game. Do you think the balance of the teams do you think it's wrong at the moment? But yes, they're scoring goals, but they look so vulnerable defensively, and maybe Slot's moved away from that kind of physical, trusted midfield last year of Gravenberch, Szoboszlai, and McAllister to kind of get Wirtz into a team. Would you be surprised if he continues with this same midfield? I know Gravenberch didn't play in the first game, but do you think they're too open and they'll be exposed in our games? And you're not going to get a last minute goal every week. Certainly not from a 16-year-old. I don't think so. And I think Carragher says, even with the 10 men, they say that Liverpool were lucky to get a result as a worry moving forward. And is that something that you think Slot will address? Because we know last year he changed it up quite a bit whenever there was problems, and we know he's not a stubborn manager. Well, he didn't appear to be last year. We Arsenal coming up this weekend. We know Arsenal are a very well balanced team, very strong defensively. Would you be surprised if he plays with the same kind of system?
Not system, but maybe personnel. I would bring Robertson on for this game over Kyrgyz if I'm being 100% honest.
Do you think McAllister, Szoboszlai, and Gravenberch have to start in a midfield three, or do you think Wirtz will continue in that role?
Well, after Szoboszlai's performance the other night at right back, for me the midfield, if I was picking it, would be Gravenberch, McAllister, Szoboszlai, but I'm a feeling they'll put Wirtz in there. And to be honest, I think we'll see Szoboszlai at right back again because we don't have a fit right back at the minute. Bradley only got a few minutes. Gomez is he's just a cheerleader at this point, doesn't he? He doesn't really get much minutes, and then Frank Pong's obviously injured, so I think we'll see the same midfield, but I don't know.
I wonder will he possibly maybe move Wirtz out to the left just for this game? Maybe just to get a bit more of a because you think about Arsenal and their midfield. With Odegaard injured, they're probably going to play with Rice, Zubimendi, and possibly maybe Norgard. So that's a very physical midfield.
Norgard's injured, I think.
Or he could bring in Marino. So
Yeah.
that's quite a physical midfield. But it'll be interesting to see because that is going to be a fascinating game on Sunday. Oh, and let's
I take
talk
a
about.
point. I take a point now if you offered me it. I'm not gonna not gonna lie.
Let's touch on Newcastle because whatever your feelings and thoughts are on Newcastle, whether you're a
I've
Sunderland
I've
fan
I've
or you're a
nothing,
disgruntled.
I've nothing against Newcastle. It's just
Well,
their
I was going to
fans.
say whether you're a Sunderland fan or a disgruntled Liverpool fan with his Isak pursuit, I don't think anyone can deny that Newcastle were outstanding on Monday night. Do you think with the cloud over them with Isak, the cloud over them with the struggle to get players on, no striker in the team, and they produced a performance like that. And you have to say, I mean, they could have easily have buckled as well when they could see the second goal, and they just
Yeah,
rallied. I thought their midfield three were outstanding and dominated Liverpool, to be honest.
that's gonna be a
Um,
problem for them going forward because they're all injured
well,
now.
that's what I think Eddie House is obviously a brilliant performance, one of the best that he's seen in his time there. But it was a very bad night in terms of the result. How they lost the game in the last minute, and of course Gordon suspended now for 3 games, and they've lost players to injury in midfield. So taking that aside, Owen, I mean, would you be encouraged as a Newcastle fan that there will be life after Isak because that performance on Monday night didn't necessarily look like a team that was missing their star man?
I mean, you could say they were missing him because the chances they got, if he was there, they would have buried a few more.
Yeah.
So you could look at it two ways, but let's be honest, right? Regardless of what happens in these last 4 or 5 days, whatever it is, Isak will never play for Newcastle again. I'm convinced on that. Like he's already said as much. They had a meeting with him. They had a meeting with him the other day. He said he wants to move to Liverpool. As he goes the right way about it, probably not. But in terms of life after him, they'll be grand because they have a great midfield there. They've Alanga and Gordon who are speed demons. They could work on their finishing, and if they get a striker, I mean, I don't know, they might have to go and get bloody someone out of the Irish league at this point, just to get somebody in because they're really going down the list now. Larson's been rejected again, hasn't it? I think they.
Well, we'll come on to speak about transfers very shortly. One,
It's,
but I have
it's
to say, big credit to Newcastle because
yeah, they're right.
they definitely exceeded their performance levels based on what they had, and
I think the crowd helped as well.
yeah, the crowd definitely helped and generated the atmosphere. But I think as well that midfield three with Gordon and Alanga,
Yeah.
still a lot of quality in that team.
Oh,
And if they can get at least one striker on, I still think they'll be okay. But Owen, let's rewind back to the Saturday lunchtime kickoff because we go back a week and everyone was raving about Man City, and they were going to be massive threats. Before we sort of speak about the game, do you think that people got carried away with that Man City won at Wolves? Wolves have been struggling, lost a few players. Not the Spurs is the ultimate test, but it was obviously going to be a much more difficult test than Wolves. So, I mean, were the media getting carried away with that 4-0 win at Wolves?
I said at the time, Wolves aren't going to pull up much trees this season. In fact, I think you had them to be relegated, didn't you?
Just about I done that mix anyway.
So I think it was overblown a bit. Don't get me wrong, it was an amazing performance, but going from Wolves to Spurs is a big jump, and I thought in terms of that game, Spurs again. You're speaking about physical midfielders. You had Bentancur, Polina, and Sarr. They just bullied Man City's midfield. And to be fair, Richarlison as well. He did his. I know he assisted the goal. I think he did, if I remember right.
Yep.
He assisted the goal. He ran his socks off. Man City just couldn't live with the energy that he's had, the pressing from the front with Johnson and who else was playing? Richarlison.
Yeah, Ali McCoy actually says on Talk Sport, he was doing the game obviously for TNT. He says that Spurs ran Man City into the ground. So, kind of what you're saying. I mean, is that going to be one of Thomas Frank's strengths? And the team that maybe they haven't got a creativity at the moment, and I know we'll speak about the transfers in a minute, but it's a big physical, midfield, and Polina was absolutely outstanding. I mean, for a man that hasn't had much football, he looks like a Rolls Royce signing.
He's brilliant, especially for a loan. I don't know if he's have to buy him or if it's an option to buy, but it's for a team that's we'll speak about it, but who are struggling themselves to
Yeah,
get transfers over the line. I think these can be happy with your start of the season. But as we spoke about many times, if Spurs get a few injuries, uh, that's where they could really struggle because I looked at their bench on Saturday, and as much as their starting 11's great, their bench is not
yeah,
same as us really. A
yeah. And
few,
we seen that against PSG, didn't they? When they didn't
yeah,
have the players to come on and affect the game. And I mean, Jamie Carragher says other than Liverpool's performances, and he would say that even this, analysing it on Monday Night Football, was arguably the bravest performance against the Pep Guardiola team he's ever seen. And he referenced the press that Spurs had on for the second goal in terms of, I think they had 7 players between the goalkeeper, Trafford, and the edge of the D. So,
yeah.
I mean, whilst Ange Postecoglou played with a high line and very attack minded, it does look like Thomas Frank as being brave, but it looks a lot more structured. And Spurs don't look as vulnerable in transition as they did under Ange. I mean, do you think that looking at this now, Spurs have made the right decision by getting rid of Ange and getting on Thomas Frank? Because already, I know it's very early days, but they look really well organised and they've played arguably two of the best teams in the world in PSG and Man City.
I mean, I was saying as far back as last season that they should get rid of Ange. So you sort of know my opinion on it, but I have to give it to Thomas Frank. He's a top coach, like. But I've for me the real test will be when they have to play Tuesday, Saturday, Sunday, Tuesday when like they have to chop and change because they don't. The draw for that's actually tomorrow, isn't it?
5 o'clock tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll be looking forward to that. But that'll be the real test for me when they have to play Europe Prem. No, once they get to that stage, then I'll judge. But for now, they're doing the best they can with a very limited squad.
Yeah. What's your thoughts on Man City after that? I mean, do you think there's still a lot of work for Pep and Man City to get right if they're going to go on to be Premier League champions this year?
I
A lot
mean,
of people still feel that Liverpool and Arsenal are better suited to being champions this year. And people are thinking, especially after that performance, that maybe Man City, believe it or not, have something to prove.
I mean, not to be disrespectful, but if they keep Trafford in goal, then it's could be a long season because I know they're trying to get Donnarumma, but Trafford had a really shaky game, and again, I thought their defense was wide open, same as us. They're not great defensively, but I do think us and Arsenal are still just a but not too far, but we're ahead of City at the minute.
Yeah, I kind of feel like this is a bit of a Back to the Future podcast because we keep going back here in time. But let's go back to Friday night. Um, West Ham and Chelsea kicked off the weekend. I think every man on his dog, fancied Chelsea. They won quite comfortably, but
And
I
we
think they'll
didn't.
get toppled for West Ham, especially after that early goal. And the way it
What a
unravelled back
what
in
a
the
goal
second
was
half.
it?
Well, that's it. And let's be honest, Chelsea took their foot off the gas at 5-1, or it could have been a real embarrassment. Everyone was kind of saying West Ham could struggle this year, but I don't think anyone had them as potential relegation candidates. But if you look at it now, I think their probability of being relegated has increased quite significantly. And a lot of the media are saying that Graham Potter is under huge pressure already. It just looks like a real mess there at West Ham at the moment. Kudos, they've lost who I have to say I've been very impressed with him at
Oh,
Spurs. He's a real threat. And West Ham have lost that threat. Bowen looks isolated.
did you see him
Paqueta,
last night?
not sure
Did
if
you
he'll
see?
be there.
Did you see Bowen last night fighting with people?
I always think when there's fans and players arguing, it's probably more going on behind the scenes. But Paqueta has been linked with the way we move. We'll speak about him
Spurs
in a minute.
actually.
Well, Spurs, but our clubs as well, possibly looking at him. And I think there's a willingness that he may want to move on.
Yeah.
And their midfield, just what we said about Liverpool lacking balance in the team. West Ham's midfield looks to be all wrong at the moment. They can't really cope with any kind of legs, and Chelsea ran them under the ground. Uh, and it looks a massive struggle at the moment. And Graham Potter, who I was a big fan of a few years ago, and I think he's a very good manager. But I just wonder if this is just the wrong fit and he looked totally lost on the sideline on a Friday night. And I don't know, maybe he just needs to put out of his misery. I'm not sure where West Ham would go, but
No, do they go back to a Moyes type? But it just the big thing at West Ham is the ownership. They don't like the ownership. They don't spend any money. I know they're trying to get Sangarian on loan from Nottingham Forest, but I mean he hasn't pulled up any trees. But I think I don't want to read too much into Chelsea in this because, as you say, it was a walk in the park for them. But I have to say, I've been very, very surprised at how bad West Ham have been in this early stages of the season. But I do definitely think they'll be in that conversation come May, whether they get relegated or not. But I think they'll be round about there at the end of the season.
The final game I'm going to touch on, Owen, is the Super Sunday game at Craven Cottage, Fulham, and Man United playing out a 1-1 draw. I have to say it wasn't the greatest game compared to some of the other games we've seen this weekend past. But United started really well, and really probably should have been 2 or 3-0 up. I mean, Cunha's hit the post when he should score. I think the other one, it was a great first touch, and if his second touch had a match his first touch, it would have been a goal.
Good save too.
I wouldn't blame it. I think he's looked really impressive. I think Mbeumo is still getting up to speed, but I think Cunha at the moment, I think his first goal probably isn't far away. Yeah. Bruno Fernandes, of course, misses the penalty. So on another day, they could have been 3-0 in that first.
Because the ref bummed on them. He drives me insane.
But I think the worry for United, and I spoke to some of their fans, was how bad they were in the second half. And this point was raised after the Arsenal game that when they kind of made subs in the first half, when they made the subs in the first half, the first half performance didn't really match the second half. And is that a worry that when they're making these subs, players aren't having the influence that Amram wants? And there still seems to be question marks over that system that he's playing. You know, is Ahmed Diallo suited to be in a right wing back? No. As Bruno Fernandes suited a midfielder? No. And he seems to want to persist with his formation. And, you know, I seen a stat today on that he's managed 29 Premier League games and only picked up 28 points. So he's managed more games than points, and only 7 wins out of 29 games, which is you're chatting your 9 games off a full season. So you're chatting 3/4 of a season there. If the league games can be put together. So the stats make damn and reading on. I mean, what's your thoughts on United so far? I mean, 2 games in, there's definitely been some positives, but I think Gary Neville says that second half performance reopened some of the old wounds.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree on Cunha. He's looked, out of their signing so far, out of Hammond and Bueno, he's looked the brightest. But apart from that first 10, 15 minutes against Fulham, obviously they played well against Arsenal. But I said that at the time they'll get up for it because it's a home game. It's Arsenal. But when Fulham sort of came back and at the end of the second, and I think the substitutions, as you say, Mount and Fernandes in the midfield, they were just getting walked through. There was no solidity.
I looked at Fulham's bench and thought they have a better bench than Man United do.
I mean, they're bringing on Smith Rowe and Raul Jimenez, and they're 2 decent Premier League level players.
Yeah, and again, still no goal from goal scoring. Sorry.
I was going to say the goalkeeper's a problem too. They need to sort that.
Yeah, the goalkeeper's a massive problem, and we'll speak about that. But still no goal from a Man United player in the opening. Goal scoring was a massive issue last year. Of course, it was an own goal in this game. They drew a blank against Man United, but I suppose the encouraging sign is they are creating more chances, and they do look like they can score goals. But I think there's players lacking confidence, and I think Gary Neville says Sesko needs to be kind of played on the match fitness because leaving him on
I would say you'll see Sesko tonight against Grimsby.
Yeah, I was going to say, before we move on to that, you mentioned the goalkeeper. I think that's the issue, that if they're not going to win games convincingly and they're in a lot of tight games, the goalkeeper's going to be a massive vulnerability to them, because anytime a team is dead piece, they're going to fancy their chances of scoring.
Yeah, both of their goalkeepers aren't great. So it's, what do you do there? I know they're signing a boy from Royal Antwerp, I think, but he's a young keeper. I haven't seen much of him.
Yeah. Of course, Man United are back on the TV tonight. They take on Grimsby Town away from home in the second round of the Carabao Cup. And of course, the third round draw will take place afterwards, where all the teams from Europe will feature. And just a reminder that none of the teams playing in Europe can draw each other in this round, so should be some nice draws for the European teams. And as Owen pointed out, there's an hour draw tomorrow. The Champions League draw takes place at 5 p.m. tomorrow, and we've got the Europa League and the Conference League draw on Friday morning. So,
I
Owen,
want,
a
I
lot of
want, I want Madrid at home. Oh, I want Madrid at home.
a lot of draws they look forward to in the next couple of days.
Hmm.
Start to see the fixture list extending. Let's move on, because we are only 4 days away from the end of the transfer window. As this is, so many spinning plates and domino effects that could take place. But it does feel at the moment, before we speak about certain players, Owen, that teams just do not want to sell their players. And I think that's why we're seeing the likes of Newcastle and Spurs, um, them two specifically, struggle, because we're very late now in the window and teams just do not want to sell, even if it is for big money, because they're struggling to get a replacement. And also the fact, if they do sell, teams know they then have money
Yeah.
extract out of them. And there's always that risk of, if you sell a player for 60 or 70 million, you might have to spend that 60 or 70 million just to get another player in who may not be as good. And of course, even if they are as good, they need an adjustment period to get up to speed. So, I mean, what do you expect in the next 4 days? I mean, do you think it may be that one move could light the torch for a domino effect? Um, or could it be a bit of a damp squad in terms of teams just knuckle down and say we're not selling?
It depends on who you're talking about, because if you're talking about Newcastle, regardless of what happens with Isak, they need a striker.
Yeah,
Like,
well, 50 million rejected for Strand Larson, then 55 million rejected. We're told that a 60 million bid is incoming, but the word from Craig Hope, he's a very respectable journalist on the Newcastle side, is there is a feeling that that will be rejected. Wolves do not want to sell this late in the window. So, I mean, we would say that 60 million is quite a lot of money for Strand Larson, but Wolves may feel that they can't get anyone of his
yeah,
ability
yeah.
in the time that remains. So, I mean, that would be a big risk for Wolves in terms of relegation, because they've already lost Cunha and Al Nouri.
It's difficult, but I mean, mad things have happened on deadline day. So if I'm talking as a Liverpool fan, what do I expect from? I'm 50-50 on Isak.
Well,
I keep
I mean, he is the story of the summer, Alexander Isak. I mean, 4 days to go. It's fair to say in the last 4 or 5 weeks, there's been no movement on this really at all. Isak has made a number of he's made a statement, but he's made a number of signs to Newcastle that he will not be playing for the club again. He's refused contract after contract. Liverpool are keen to get the deal done, but Newcastle do not have a replacement. And at the moment, there is a feeling inside Newcastle, we're hearing, that they're beginning to feel that it's going to be very, very difficult to get a striker on. Therefore, it's impossible to sell Isak. I mean, what are you expecting over the next few days?
no. I think we get it done. I genuinely do. I think we get it done. Uh, um, because because of it's just as you said at the start, it's just a dark cloud over them. And if he's not going to play, what's the point in him sitting there? Because he can just continue and go, "I'm not playing. I'm not playing." So, and he's been called up to Sweden today, so his place is sorted there. Like, so he's
Mhm.
going to get football some minutes, but I genuinely think we'll get him done.
The other player that Newcastle are courting is Vissa from Brentford, and again, that from what we're hearing as well, and that is becoming less likely than the Strand Larson deal. Brentford have doubled down, refusing to sell. Newcastle don't believe he's worth the 60 million, that it might even persuade Brentford to come back to the table. But again, Brentford are saying they can't afford to sell him just because there's no replacement lined up. And this seems to be the story of the window in the last few weeks here. You know, we're hearing that Spurs as well. We're looking at Savinho from Man City. Rodrigo was possibly being lined up for Man City as a replacement. Real Madrid have now says he is not for sale. Man City are saying to Spurs, Savinho is not for
What
sale.
this says, I just read here from I don't know if it's a reliable source, but it's MSI Douglas.
Who?
Don't know if you. It's MSI Douglas. I got it from Anfield Sector. It said Newcastle are braced for a second bud from Alexander Isak from Liverpool. So we're going to try
Yeah,
anyway.
I think we'll have to come back and win our bud to see if that forces a hand. They've waited as long as they can. I feel they may have to try and force this if they want the player. But just on Spurs one, Savinho looks like it's dead in the water just because Man City cannot get anyone to replace him. We're also hearing that tonight that Spurs are preparing a bud for Xavi Simons. He is keen on a move to Chelsea, but at the moment Chelsea seem to be prioritising Garnacho, so Simons may be open to a move. But we're hearing there is a massive fear factor inside the Spurs recruitment team that they do not want to be shown up again publicly after the Gibbs White and the Eze sagas going south. But I mean, Spurs are going to have to roll the dice here. I mean, it's obvious they want players. They want players of a certain level. But it's proven very difficult. I mean, do you expect Spurs to get any kind of business done between now and Monday?
They need even if it's just a loan deal or something, they need something because as much as their midfield is sturdy and physical and it's hard to break down, where's the creativity coming from?
Yeah, one other name being linked, and this hasn't really gone away, is Morgan Rogers. Now, Villa, or I think Spurs have sounded this out through the intermediaries, as you say. Villa are not interested in selling him, but if Spurs were to come in with about 80 million, then there may be room for persuasion. But again, I mean, that feels like a long way off. I mean, one, are Spurs going to be prepared to pay that money? And two, I think there is a real fear factor that they can't afford another mistake because the fans are already disgruntled about the Eze and the Gibbs White. They don't want a hat trick here. They do not want a Simmons or a Morgan Rogers falling through.
No, definitely not. They need to do, as I say, but they need to do something before the window closes because they'll come back to bite them later on when they have to start playing 2-3 games a week.
Yeah, my gut feeling is on these deals that Vissa stays at Brentford. I think if Newcastle come in with another bid for Strand Larson of 60 million and it's rejected, I can't see Newcastle going back in again for him.
No,
and that may in turns, make Isak impossible for Liverpool. I do think Liverpool may test the waters when our bud.
If we do,
I think Spurs has run out of time. I think they've had bad results in this transfer market.
What about Mark Day, the Liverpool? What about that?
I think that's a realistic chance of happening. I think that could happen because Palace are kind of keen to sell him because they'd only lose him on a free. So that's a unique situation where a club's actually prepared to sell a player.
I think
in all these cases, they do not want to sell.
They're looking to get a Kanji from City actually. Palace.
Right, let's. I'm going to we'll do some rate the rumors or rate the how you think they'll go. So Alexander Isak, does he stay or does he go?
No, I'm going to be biased here. I'm going to say he goes.
And I'm going to say he stays.
All right.
Johan Vissa, is he a Brentford player or a Newcastle player come 7 o'clock on Monday?
Brentford.
Yeah, I feel the same. Strand Larson. One thing I would say on Wolves is defense in the Wolves situation is this says this before with Nunez, with Cunha, with Al-Nouri, and when eventually a bid comes in of a price they feel they can't refuse, they do it, even if it means possibly putting themselves in danger. So the Strand Larson.
Their manager said last night. Their manager said last night that every player has a price. So
right, so Strand Larson, Wolves or Newcastle when the window shuts.
I think if Newcastle come on with 60-65 million, I think he goes.
I'm going to say that the next bud decides this. I think if 60 million comes in and they accept, they don't accept that, I think Newcastle will walk away. If they do, then maybe there's movement on Isak. So these two might be linked. But I'm going to say that Wolves are going to double down and say no.
I do think, regardless of Isak, I do think Isak will play for Liverpool at some point. I do believe that.
Mark Gahey, and I think this one has a good chance, but I think the movement will happen after Palace's game on Thursday.
See if he gets injured, I swear to. Oh, I think it's one. I think I'm 99% that this one will get done.
Yeah, I think so as well. Mark Gahey, Liverpool. Um,
Which will be a very
Morgan
good series
Rogers.
because I think he starts for us at the minute.
Morgan Rogers,
Nah,
does he stay at Villa or do Spurs come in and get him?
no, I think he'll be. Sorry to tell you, I think he'll still be a Villa player come 7 o'clock or 11 o'clock
Here's
Monday.
here's what I think will happen. I think
What time
he
does
will stay
what time does the window close on Monday?
7 o'clock on Monday.
7. I thought it was 11 o'clock.
Used to be 11, but they've changed it this year. So I'm going to say that Spurs might get a bud, but Villa refuse.
Yeah,
So Roger stays. Xavi Simmons, does he stay at Leipzig? Does he go to Chelsea? Does he go to Spurs? How do you see this going?
I don't. I honestly I don't know. But if you're, I'm gonna say ends up at Chelsea because they've done all the groundwork.
I'm going to say Chelsea as well. Garnacho, is he going to be stuck at Man United or Chelsea?
I think. Well, Fabrizio Romano's just panned something about him. So when he pans something, it's normally close. So I'm gonna say. Gonna say he'll be
Well,
a Chelsea player. I don't know where they all fit in right enough, but still.
clubs are 15 million apart in valuation. Chelsea have offered 35, United 150. Could see a
Yeah.
deal being done for somewhere around 45 there. So I'm going to say he ends up at
I
Chelsea.
40, I agree. 45 plus 5 million add-ons or something.
Yeah. Right, Owen, let's move on to the Premier League weekend. Of course, some huge games. And of course, we've also got the Old Firm. Before we come on to the weekend, actually, let's just speak about Celtic last night because a very, very disappointing um, result in Europe. I mean, 210 minutes against Kiryat Almaty.
I seen
You're ranked 307th in the world.
I seen a
I mean,
picture last night too that they went above Derry in the rankings.
yeah, I mean that's usually the level that they're at. It'll be their first time in the Champions League. And Celtic, to be honest, really until extra time over the two games didn't show a lot. I think they were possibly played their best football in the extra time, but
Yeah.
didn't do enough. And a real body blow. And one worrying thing is Brendan Rodgers looks increasingly unhappy, and again that could spell danger in terms of him maybe
I
moving
think
on after this season.
I think he will. I think he will move on after the season. I think he'll go back to the Prem, and I think I'm going to make an early prediction here. I think he's going to end up at West Ham or Nottingham Forest. One of them two.
What was your thoughts on Celtic going out? Because
I was surprised, but I was surprised but not surprised.
Couldn't have had a better draw. I mean, that was the best opponent they could.
It just shows the level of where they're at. Like they won every week domestically, but even if they come up against bad teams in Europe, they always get a game. So and the Celtic fans are not happy with their board, so it just doesn't seem a very happy camp at the moment.
Yeah, and Rangers are an absolute disarray. 3 draws in the opening 3 games in the Scottish League. Of course, beat 3-1 at home by Club Brugge last night. That second leg's tonight in Bruges. Any hope for Rangers, or are they going to be going to the Europa League with Celtic?
The Old Firm's going to be going to the Europa League, I would imagine.
It's been a while since both teams missed out in the Champions League, so it doesn't look good for Scottish football at the moment. And Celtic, as you say, a real reluctance to invest, and that has cost them ultimately. I don't know if they were waiting to see if they qualify, but in waiting, they've now lost out in potential Champions League money. And let's be honest, if you looked at the Europa League last year, you still had the likes of United and Spurs on there. Villa and Forest this year, maybe not as glamorous opposition. So Celtic, they get a big draw at home this season. They think they played Bayern Munich last year. That isn't going to be the case this year, so the fans will be hurting by
that. It's a difficult one for them, but as I said, I don't really pay too much attention to Scottish football. But it'll be a tough pill to swallow for both of them, really.
Yeah, we'll come on to talk about the Old Firm when we catch updates here. Let's do the Premier League preview of the weekend in chronological order. So we'll start with.
We just do predictions,
Yeah, we'll start with a West London derby. on Saturday at 12:30. Um, Fulham, as we says, they finished strong against Man United. And Chelsea, of course, couldn't break down Palace, but found West Ham much more gifting opposition.
Yeah.
And out 5-1 winners. How do you see this game? Do you think this will be a much more difficult game for Chelsea than West Ham were?
No, do I Fulham are a much better side than West Ham. I'm going to go 2-1 to Chelsea.
I'm going to go for a 2-0 Chelsea victory. Which is obviously is a huge game for United tonight just because of the pressure that the manager will be under if they didn't win. But of course, they're expected they won tonight and they'll be expected they won on Saturday. But these two games you feel are must wins. Not that they'll get much credit for it, but they can't afford any slip ups. And United against Burnley on Saturday at 3:00, it's a must win game. And
especially
the performance against United was good and the first half was okay against Fulham. It's all about getting points on the board when you're under pressure. And if you don't beat Burnley, there is going to be question marks over this international break of, is Amram really the man? They take him forward. And I don't think he will be sacked. But I think by the time the next international break came around, if there wasn't a significant improvement in results, he could well be under serious pressure. So must-win game for United. How do you assess this? Because Burnley got a big result against Sunderland last week.
I know, but as much as my biasness would love to shine through.
I'll give you an example. Burnley went to the Spurs stadium on the opening day of the season, and I don't think they were that bad. I think we had a bit more quality. They could have maybe hurt Spurs, but it was 1-0 for a long time in that game before Richarlison scored that great goal, and then Spurs kind of took the game away from Burnley. But it wasn't as easy as maybe some Spurs fans thought it would be, and United at the minute struggling to score goals. So is this a lot closer than maybe it should be?
I don't know. I'm going to go 3-1 Man United.
Right. I'm going to say United fall of the line. 2-1 United won. Sunderland against Brentford. I mean, Sunderland,
6 pointer already, maybe.
Against West Ham, but they were crashed. They were brought back down to earth very, very quickly by their promotion partners, Burnley. Is it hard to read into Sunderland because of how poor West Ham have been? They've lost their 2 opening games. They lost the Wolves in the Cup, who've also been struggling. So are we going to get a better read of Sunderland in this game, do you think?
I think so. I think this is more of a level playing field, but not that Burnley isn't. But I think Sunderland's home form for all the promoted teams is going to be vital. I think it's going to be vital that they win the majority of their home games.
Yeah, and Brentford, of course, had an awful first half against Forest, but haven't conceded a goal since. They won the second half in that game 1-0. Of course, that gets you nothing. But they beat Bournemouth 1-0. Sorry, not Bournemouth. Who they beat? Brentford last week. Who they beat 1-0?
No, it wasn't. Did they beat 1-0? What? Why can't I remember?
They beat 1-0. And then, of course, they went to Bournemouth last night and the Cup won 2-0. So Keith Andrews has kind of stemmed the negativity there at the moment.
Yeah.
And this is a big game for both teams because a win here could take somebody on the 6 points already.
Yep. So it's a tight one, I'm going to go 1-1.
I'm going to say home form. It's going to be crucial here. I'm going to say 2-1 Sunderland.
Jordan Henderson derby,
at 3:00 as well. Spurs, one of only 3 teams, along with Arsenal and Liverpool, they would take maximum points from
one of them's definitely going to go this weekend.
Yeah. Bournemouth, of course, were impressive at Anfield despite losing 4-2 and did beat 10-man Wolves 1-0 last week. But a poor result in the Cup last night sees one potential Cup run end very early, and Bournemouth would have been one of those teams maybe looking for a Cup run because I don't really think any danger of relegation, but Europe might be a stretch.
Yeah.
I mean, what's your thoughts on that? I mean, do you think that's a damaging result for Bournemouth? Because we've seen last year with Newcastle and Palace, when you're not a team that's going to get relegated, surely you should target them cup runs because it can give fans an opportunity to experience what Wembley's like and possibly even winning a trophy, because we know on their day Bournemouth can give anyone a game.
It will be disappointing, but I don't think Bournemouth would have won the League Cup anyway. I know you can never really say that, but I think if this was the FA Cup, because in the last few seasons the FA Cups provided a bit more magic, would you say? But I think they'll be annoyed, but I don't think they'll be too downhearted by it. But in terms of this game, I can't see anything but a Spurs win. But I do think he's will concede. I'm going to go 2-1 Spurs.
Spurs, where one could go top of the league, and if there wasn't a winner in the Liverpool Arsenal game, would be guaranteed to be the only team with 3 wins out of 3 in top of the league after the first few games. But look, I don't think Spurs will be getting carried away at the moment, but that is a bit of an incentive. They may be going into
Yeah.
September. We're the only team to be on maximum points.
And why is there an international break? 3 games.
I know. You're saying 2-1 Spurs. I am going to say I agree with you. I think this might be the game that Spurs are finally breached, but I'm going to say maybe a bit more comfortable. I'm going to say 3-1 Spurs. Final 3 o'clock game is Wolves and Everton. Wolves have been beaten twice, but did get a run in the cup last night against fellow strugglers West Ham. Everton, they're actually in action tonight against Mansfield at home. And after that disappointing Monday Night Football where he leads, they responded with a 2-0 win against Brighton, although that scoreline doesn't tell the full story of the game because Brighton really could have got something out of it. I mean,
they had the bar.
Grealish made an impact on the game for Everton because he was involved in the goals, but do you sense that they were very fortunate to get that result on Sunday?
100%. I was watching it. They had the Brighton had the bar 3 times. They missed a penalty, so I think on a different day we could be sitting here with Everton with 0 points, and Wolves really need to win because again,
it's a big because if they were to lose this, you know, that would be a very very poor start to the season.
Especially if Sunderland got a result, because then that would be already 6 points adrift. I know it's early, but still. But I think in this game, it's tough to tell. I'm gonna go 2-1 Everton 1.
I'm gonna go for a 1-1 draw. 5-3. Your live game on Sky is Leeds against Newcastle. I think we've seen a lot of Leeds come up. I mean, I think this is the 3rd week in a row they've been live on Sky.
Same way also.
Yeah, a brilliant result against Everton. I mean, Arsenal was a free hit, but you know, do you think it was damaging how badly they lost? I mean, and they looked really short. I know Arsenal's one of the stronger teams. Never really looked like they could hurt Arsenal at all. I mean, and
no, they were bad.
And Newcastle, of course, are stronger opposition than Everton were at home. But like you say, maybe they're hitting them at the right time with all these injury problems.
But no, from what I've seen in Newcastle on Monday night, I'm going to back them to get the one. I'm going to go 2-0 Newcastle. Or sorry, 2-1. I'll give Leeds a goal. 2-1.
I'm going to say 1-1 for this game. Moving away from the Premier League for a moment, Rangers take on Celtic at 12 o'clock in the Old Firm on Sunday.
This is the only game of Scottish football that I watch.
And I mean, I can't believe I'm saying this in August, but
it's a title
decider already because if Celtic would have won this game, they would be 9 points clear Rangers, and I think that's a massive gap. I mean, what's your thoughts on Russell Martin so far? Because he divided opinion in the Premier League with his stubbornness, and he only had the one way of playing, and even when they were conceding crazy goals, he never changed. And whilst you could say he's at the top end of the Scottish League with Rangers, they're the second strongest team, supposedly, and Southampton were the weakest, obviously, in the Premier League. But he seems to be struggling to get any kind of results. And I watched them against St Mirren on Sunday, and I mean, they never really looked like scoring. And then once they did score, they kind of you thought they would get a second because they piled the pressure on. But up until the 78th minute, they were very, very poor. Celtic, like we said earlier on, had a shocker in Europe, but have been very consistent in the Scottish League. Although Rangers have had the upper hand against Celtic in these games over the last couple of seasons, despite struggling in the league. So it's a bit of a hard one to predict because Rangers have been raising their game when Celtic have come to town.
I don't know. I'm going to go 2-2.
I was going to say the same. I'm going to say 2-2 as well. That's the result I have in my head. 2-2. Back to the Premier League. Brighton take on Man City at 2 o'clock. We said about Brighton losing. Well, they've had a bit of a shocker because they battered Fulham and conceded a late goal. They let 2 points slip, and to be honest, they battered Everton last week and got nothing for it. So Brighton seem to be struggling to put the ball in the net, though. And Man City, I'm sure, will be looking to bounce back after that humble against Spurs. So, Brighton did beat Man City last year, 2-1, but I think City will be definitely looking to back, and Brighton look a bit shot in front of goal at the minute.
I agree. I'm going to go in Man City 1. I'm going to go 3-1 Man City.
I'm going to say 3-0 Man City. The other game at 2 o'clock, live on Sky, is Nottingham Forest against West Ham. Forest took advantage of a very, very poor Brentford team in the day of the season. Are they going to take advantage of an hour per team coming to town with West Ham?
Yeah, I think so. I think this is a must-win game. It could be Nuno's last game, depending on how things go. Because obviously he has comments, but I'm going to go 2-0 Nottingham Forest.
I'm going to go 3-0 Nottingham Forest. I think West Ham are in such a bad way at the moment. That's going to be big. The big one at 4:30, last year's top two collide very early in the season, but already it feels significant because both teams have won their opening games. And look, Arsenal have this unbelievable record against the big six teams over the last number of seasons, unbeaten now, I think, for quite a while. I think it's over 20 games. Although I think the last 3 games here at Anfield have all finished in draws, so they haven't been actually able to beat Liverpool at Anfield. But it has been there has been 3 draws, I think, in a row. I mean, how do you see this going? Arsenal have obviously lost Saka and Odegaard to injury, so that is a big blow. But Arsenal look a lot more sound defensively, so it'll be an interesting game.
It will be. I think this is going to sound stupid, but I do think it'll be attack versus defense in a way of, if our attack's on it, I think we won. If that makes sense. But then, you know what? I'm going to go in my head. I'm going to say 1 each.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, if Saka and Odegaard were fit, I think he couldn't back Liverpool on what you've seen. But
it's tough, like.
The chances that Liverpool are giving up is what's concerning.
Yeah.
And I think Arsenal, this might be their time they won at Anfield. So I'm going to say Arsenal nick at 1-0.
It'll be tight either way.
Yeah, and finally, Aston Villa take on Crystal Palace at 7 o'clock on Sunday night. This is also live on Sky. This originally was to be a Friday night game, but it was moved. Palace being demoted to the Conference League, and therefore have to play on Thursday night. Villa has been an awful start to the season for them. Very, very poor against Brentford. They were lucky to get the result against Newcastle, to be honest, that draw on the opening day. Palace steadied the ship, I suppose. A draw against Forest and a draw against Chelsea. And I've had to deal with all the issues with the Conference League and the Europa League, and obviously Eze being moved on, and now the possibility of Gahey going to Liverpool. So it's been a difficult summer for Palace. But Glasgow is a very, very good manager, and he doesn't ever seem to anything phase him. But I just wonder, when we asked him Villa, Emery seems to have these cycles where after a few years it breaks down. Are you sensing Are you sensing it could become the end for Emery and Villa? Because I don't think it's necessarily all his fault because of the problems they have financially, but they don't look at the minute like a team firing on all cylinders.
I don't think they haven't scored a goal of them,
No.
It's difficult for Villa because they're hamstrung by they can't spend anything, and they're going to lose their best players. But I think in this game, I'm going to go for a 2-0 Palace one.
I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw in this game. I'm struggling to separate them. That is the weekend preview. Owen, I know you're looking forward to Liverpool Arsenal. Any other games in there? Possibly the Old Firm. Is that the one that jumps out?
The Old Firm, and have this Man City Brighton too. Big good watch.
Yeah, good Sunday football there, definitely.
Yep.
Football 12 until 9 o'clock. Incredible, hey? Someday for Sky Sports.
They're getting their money's worth.
Yeah, Owen, thanks for coming on. We'll be back next week. I'm actually away on holidays tomorrow, so we'll be back next Friday with the Premier League preview. The Premier League review, and of course, rounding up all the business that happened on deadline day, looking at some of the international fixtures as the likes of Ireland kick off their World Cup qualifying campaign against Hungary and Ireland World Cup. It all starts It all starts on September the 6th against Hungary. So we'll be looking ahead to that, looking back at the first few weeks of the Premier League, and looking ahead to some of the games coming up. And of course, we'll react to the Champions League draw, which takes place tomorrow as well. So, Owen, thanks for coming on, and I'll see you next week.
Cheers, lad.